Hey everyone, I kind of have a video to talk to you about the Nintendo Switch Pro, something we've been covering ad nauseum for a couple of years now. And that's because Emily Rogers, one of the most trusted inside sources when it comes to Nintendo Switch stuff, she was right about what the Switch was long before it launched, right about Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battles, just as an example. And she was talking about Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle like 8 months before, before we even had the Switch event in January of 2017, and she was telling us about that game. So she clearly has connections and has been proven right many times over the years. Of course, sometimes she's wrong, like anything. But she was also telling us about this revision throughout this entire time, trying to tell us what it is, confirming some things from Wall Street Journal. But here we are today with a brand new Nintendo Switch announced. I don't know if you heard about it. There is a brand new Switch coming out, and it's releasing in August, which is really cool, really interesting, really neat. It's essentially slightly beefed up Nintendo Switch. All they did is swap out the Tegra X1 for the 16 nanometer Tegra X1, which is a smaller chipset version, which allowed them to have higher power efficiency, which gave them an extra 2 to 3 hours battery life using the exact same battery in the Switch. So basically they swapped chipsets, which would include swapping a new board in. Well, I shouldn't really say chipsets, I suppose. They shrunk the chipset, which then needs a new board to manage the new size of chipset, because it's no longer 20 nanometers, it's now 16. So they're going to need a new board for that. They're going to need new memory, new RAM, all that stuff to kind of make it all cross-compatible. But it's Nintendo. They made it work. They already did this stuff with the Switch Lite, and now they're applying it to the Switch, and they're going to take advantage of it by giving it increased battery life. It's also possible in the future Nintendo does decide to unlock more power in the Switch. This change actually makes it possible to unlock said power, which I find very fascinating that that's even a distinct possibility. Now, setting all that aside, what we have to actually talk about now is something Emily Rogers said in response to Super Metal Dave, who is one of my good friends in this YouTube space. And first, let's get to what Super Metal Dave said himself on Twitter after this system was announced. Super Metal Dave says, "Funny thing, even though this Switch revision matches the number in the FCC," when he's talking about the FCC filing where there was some changes made to the Switch in the filing, and now this new Switch matches that Switch's number, it says, "It is not what Nintendo actually tested. I was waiting for this to be confirmed before revealing exclusive new info on a new Switch console with enhanced features, all proved 100% fact. Video today." Now, at the time of recording this, his video hasn't released. I apologize if it has, and there's some additional information. However, I do want to note something before we get into Emily Rogers' response, which you already see on screen. It's that Dave, as much as I love the guy, he is not an inside source. He does not have connections at the manufacturing level, connections at the FCC that I'm aware of. Now, if he makes people aware that he has these connections, fine. All I know is he's someone like me, and he just does his research. And all that research can end up leading to conclusions that might not be true, whereas Emily Rogers literally has access to information that Super Metal Dave and the rest of us do not. Now, here's what Emily Rogers said in direct reply to him. She said, "This revision is the new Switch revision with enhanced components." Hello, Tegra, 16 nanometer Tegra X1. This revision is what Wall Street Journal reported. This revision is what I posted on Reset Era about. There is no super powerful Switch coming this year. Now, when she references Wall Street Journal, that's clearly about the Switch Pro, because the Wall Street Journal talked about a smaller version and an enhanced component version. Now, the Wall Street Journal did note something that she doesn't address, where they talked about how they're hearing something about new screen technology that is not, as far as we are aware, included with the Switch. Maybe it is a change Nintendo made and just hasn't told us about. But she is basically saying, look, everything that people have been talking about, this is what they've been talking about. A new a really super powerful new Switch isn't even something that's in the slot for this year. And if it is coming, it's going to be down the line next year, 2021, 2022. And that might be what people consider the Switch Pro. But according to Emily Rogers, who has a lot of inside connections, she is just outright saying that all this speculation about Switch Pro and it being super powerful, it's a bunch of bollocks. And reality is this revision is what those outlets were being privy to. And that is why they were so vague on how much more powerful it would be. And technically, 16 nanometer Tegra X1 is more powerful. It can run at higher clock speeds because it deals with heat better because it takes less energy to run. However, we know right now it's running at the same speeds as the old one. This is why we said, when enough of these get on the market, say 40 million, 30 million, or whatever of these new Switches are on the market, you could see Nintendo release an update and bump the power. There's already enough heat dissipation inside the Switch to do just that. So, assuming that they keep the same heat sink and the same fan, they will be able to technically run this chip faster in the future. So, you don't need to rush out and buy one of these right now unless you really care about the battery life, but just know in the back of your mind that, hey, there's a potential in the future that it might actually be faster and be that new Nintendo 3DS. I mean, there's talks out there about basically doubling the clock speed for portable mode, with this chip is possible with the current heat dissipation, and, well, 50% increase on the GPU for docked mode is like just what some hackers out there are kind of saying are theoretically possible here given the chipset that they're going to be using. So again, this is stuff that might come down the line. It might be in the Switch, thus making this the Switch Pro, but it's just not something Nintendo's going to enable right now, likely because they don't want to confuse marketing and they don't want to confuse consumers. It might be something they tout by holiday next year, again, if enough of these new Switches are out there. Plus, the theory basically is this new Switch is going to replace the original Switch, and Nintendo will just stop making the OG Switch, which could make those OG Switch a little more valuable. I don't know, but that's just something to consider. I mean, you can see my box for it up there. It's going to be kind of interesting knowing that just after 2 years that Switch might actually increase in value a little bit just because they just don't make them anymore. They just make them like that. Now, obviously, there's a lot of speculation. I've been talking about Switch Pro for a long time. My hopes and my dreams. And I talked about recently how I was hoping it was going to be a Tegra X2. Obviously, it looks like I'm wrong. It looks like anyone who believed the Switch Pro was going to be more than what this is was wrong. This is, by at least Emily Rogers' account, what the Switch Pro is. Now, you could choose to believe it or not believe it, but we've been talking about this based on speculation and rumors. Now we know about an actual product coming here. There was new SKUs rumored to come to Switch in 2019. We have 2 SKUs coming to Switch. We had the Switch Lite, and now we have the revised Nintendo Switch. It does kind of line up with the reports we've been talking about for the last 2 years. The only thing that's not lining up is they talked about how it would be more powerful, and then like Eurogamer tried to tell you, hey, well, it's going to be more like a new Nintendo 3DS type of power upgrade, and that's actually theoretically possible with this chipset. It's just not something Nintendo's doing this year. So that's all I really have to share with you guys. Just let me know what you think about this down in the comments below. Do you think that this is for sure the Switch Pro, like Emily Rogers is saying? Are you happy with it? Do you wish it was something more? Do you think they're going to take what's in the Switch and overclock it and add more power to it later? Remember, Nintendo has already done this. They've increased the clock speeds on Switch a couple of times. The most recent one being almost at base clock for load screens in games like Breath of the Wild and Super Mario Odyssey. Nintendo is starting to enable a boost mode, which lets the X1 run at base speeds to do that. It's possible that Nintendo in the future is just going to release more updates to make this new chip even faster. So that's just something to take into consideration when you're considering maybe upgrading this year. Maybe this is the information and the person you trust for that upgrade. Nintendo is not going to tell you anything about this until they're ready to actually flip the switch and turn it up. So you guys let me know what you think about this down in the comments below. Again, I'm a little saddened if this is what the Switch Pro is. I was hoping for something a little more, but honestly, the Tegra X2 and the Tegra X1 being shrunk to 16 nanometers perform very similar. Even though it's newer architecture, Pascal, the Maxwell, the raw performance of the 16 nanometer X1 and the 16 nanometer X2 are very close to each other, to the point that it doesn't matter as long as Nintendo is willing to run the X1 at those higher clock speeds. So we'll see what happens in the future. For my sake, I hope that Nintendo does do this sometime in the future. They warn us it's going to happen, so those of us that held out can know when it's the right time to upgrade. I personally won't be upgrading my Switch this year, but hey, you know what? In the future, it would be kind of cool to do that. And heck, maybe there's some headroom on the Lite to even boost that up a little bit. And then you end up with these 2 new revisions being better than the original, just not right now. Like, Nintendo could be intentionally holding back clocks now. Well, we know for a fact they're holding back clocks now because we know these chips are just more capable. So there it is. Thank you guys for tuning in. I love you guys. I hope you're enjoying the videos today. If you missed Prime News today, go check it out. Luigi's Mansion 3 launch date. Some other interesting news in there as well. So thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll catch you all in the next video.